Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the Fastest Podcast, the only show on YouTube which discusses everything from the greatest overtakes to the fastest pit stops. And of course, I'm never on my own. It wouldn't be a podcast without having guests here, would it? First of all, we've got the man, it just wouldn't be a podcast without. Shirley, of course, it's Pigeon. And we're joined by the other person who hosts podcasts on this channel because when I'm too lazy, she can do it. It's Jazz. So, a couple of days off from the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, the dust settles and the roads reopen out in Baku. But there's one thing on everyone's lips, one name on everyone's lips, and that's Max Verstappen. Closing the gap by 25 points, it's now a gap of 69 points to Oscar Piastri. The McLaren seem to have everything under control. They were in charge of everything, and now the cracks are beginning to show. And maybe, just maybe, Max might have a chance to take this title. Thoughts?
Please.
He won't. I think we've been saying this for.
I think everyone's hoping that he'll sort of regain something and then make it tight.
Yeah, because everyone's been saying, yeah, it's not going to happen. But it would be so damn funny if he did. Because McLaren has it all but in the bag. And they just crash. They're preoccupied with team orders. And Max is just chilling behind, in front. He doesn't care. And he just closes a 35-point gap from Zandvoort to Baku. Yeah. And it's, I'm here for it. Even Jazz said, I support McLaren with all my life, but I really want Verstappen to win now because they've just thrown this away.
Never in my whole life did I think I would get to the point where I am praying for a Verstappen championship. This is like, if I told my 2021 self that I was hoping for a Verstappen championship. No, this is not a thing. But where I'm at now with McLaren, I'm so frustrated with whatever it is that they've got going on that I'm just like, come on then. Honestly, it would be kind of unreal at this phase, and I think it would really, cement what we already know Max is as a driver. But if he pulled it back now, even I'd be all for that because, I don't know, Piastri, that performance in Azerbaijan was shocking, I think, from like his caliber of racing driver. That was some feeder series work. And then Norris not being able to capitalise, also pretty shocking, really. So, let's have it.
That restart was just unbelievable from him. You know that the safety car's got to come in. You've done about 70% of the main straight, and then they go, and you're just like, let me grab some tea or something, whatever. And he just gets overtaken by Charles Leclerc. It's unheard of, especially for the main rival.
It comes back to that phrase that everyone says: "Mark of a champion" or "drive of a champion." Verstappen's gone and won the Baku Grand Prix. Piastri crashes out and has an awful qualifying. And Norris, who is the closest challenger, can't capitalise on the qualifying and can't capitalise in the race. He closes 6 points when he could have closed 25 points. And that eradicates the whole Netherlands incident that he had where he retired from the race. So is Norris got the mentality of a champion? Probably not.
I honestly don't think that we can be too harsh on him about this weekend. Restart, that was pretty poor form from him. But I think, in qualifying, I don't think McLaren made the right call. And, at that point, Piastri was out. They had one driver to focus on, and I think they just got the timing wrong. Andrea Stella's come out and defended that. I think that they made a mistake. And I also think that, we saw both cars were not performing at the level that we've expected of them. You know, maybe Baku isn't going to be the track for them this season anyway. But given all of those factors, I think maybe Norris wasn't going to have the best race in the world, whether Oscar was there or not. And, you know, Oscar also might have had a bad experience if he'd made it through that first lap. We don't know. So, you know, they had a lot of cars around them. It's difficult enough to overtake there with just the nature of the circuit. The cars are super big. We weren't seeing masses of overtaking happening anyway. I think, you know, McLaren, they tried to go long on those mediums. Impressive stint for him on the medium tyres, by the way. But I don't think we can be super harsh. And I wasn't expecting loads after what we saw in the practice sessions and after what we saw in qualifying.
We've also got to say he gains 3 places
Yeah,
if that pit stop isn't 4.4 seconds.
Yeah, and that's not his fault. You know, that is yet another pit error from McLaren, which I think maybe we need to start questioning slightly, because they've had a bit of a dodgy run of late with those pit stops.
I mean, they had one pit stop to do and they failed. So yeah,
I got on the floor. I got on the floor at Silverstone. I can now say that an F1 race has put me on the floor at Silverstone. Yeah, no, I think it was just bad performance across the board from McLaren. I don't think it warrants, you know, questioning Norris's mentality, because, yeah, I don't think it was a circuit for them this weekend. And yeah, it is what it is. Max capitalised. He put in a great lap in qualifying. Yeah.
but you do have to wonder. We're in Baku. It's a pretty technical street circuit. We're going out to Singapore, and this kind of performance, if you do that at Singapore, you'll also be in a wall and P20.
Yeah. A lot less forgiving.
Yeah, I mean, if this continues, then yeah.
So why are we questioning Norris's mentality? Why are we not questioning Piastri's? Because that was a desperate error that he made. That was a rookie mistake. That's the sort of thing you see in an F3 race or an F2 race. And everyone's come out this weekend going, oh yeah, well, Oscar put it in the wall, but why didn't Norris have a perfect race? Well, why did Oscar put it in the wall? Why did he stall on the grid? You know, like, let's not just be questioning Norris's performance all the time, because everyone raves, and I think Oscar's caliber of driving, his racecraft is impeccable most of the time. But, you know, we've got to this point in the season. I have made my case before many a time that he's made some pretty silly moves this season so far. Why are we not questioning that?
I mean, he has made some errors, and they haven't bitten him in the ass quite as much as they could have. He's made some braking errors trying to race. He didn't lose any places for that. He just didn't overtake anyone. This is, I think, the biggest error of his career. The worst race of his career so far. I think everyone's just kind of shocked with that performance. If you'd expect any driver to jump start on the grid, then stall, drop to P20, and then chuck it into a wall three turns later, I don't think anyone would have said, yeah, that's Oscar Piastri.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's just kind of shock, I think. But yeah, I think the only kind of saving grace that he had was that he is leading the championship with 30 points to spare, and that he kind of could afford it. Doesn't mean that you should, but yeah. And he got away with it even more because Norris didn't capitalize. So I think he should just be lucky that this was a one-off performance, I hope. And he should try and gather his things into Singapore, because if he does that again, he will be fighting.
I think the problem with the comparison that they have with Norris not capitalising rather than not focusing on Piastri, who crashed as championship leader, You look at the next closest challenger in Max, going back to his 2021 season with Lewis in the battle there. And you see some of the moves, or maybe they weren't necessarily the cleanest of moves. He was audacious at Italy at turn 1 and 2, rather than just sitting behind Lewis and trying to get him on the next one. He was diving in at Saudi Arabia, making sure he kept that position. He was fighting with everything that car had. And then you see Norris, who's very much within lunging distance. His championship run was already out. He's only gaining 6 points. So why not make that lunge? Why not at least break that extra 50 metres later or 25 metres later and just scare Leclerc ahead of him? Just scare whoever's ahead of him and say, I'm here, I'm waiting, and try and force them into a mistake. Instead, he's very passive. He holds back. He shows himself in the mirror and then just brakes early, backs way off, and can't make that move into the next 2, 3, 4 corners on the next straight.
I mean, I would argue that could, in this instance, be circuit specific. His teammate's just gone into the wall. It's Baku. Yeah. There are walls everywhere. He doesn't want to have a I am stupid moment. 6 points is better than none, you know? I would have loved to see him, you know, go through the grid. Didn't think it was going to happen anyway, regardless, unless by some miracle, a late safety car or something, you know, when he'd gone along on those mediums. But I don't think that it would have suited either McLaren driver. If Oscar had been in that race, I don't think he would have finished ahead of Lando. I think they were probably quite stuck where they were. And it's not like we saw massive changes across the grid, apart from maybe cars that we would have thought were very out of position.
I think it also contributes to what we've been saying the entire season, and I think I say it after every race. You can't race in these cars. It's impossible. So the qualifying is even more important than it used to be. Both McLarens qualified for, I want to say something I shouldn't, but yeah, they both did horrible in qualifying. Then everyone was out of position. Sainz in P2, Lawson in P3. Tsunoda out-qualifies Norris for, I think, the first time in his career. And then Norris spends a good 20 laps behind both Lawson and Tsunoda. And he cannot make a pass, which is weird. We haven't seen Norris be unable to pass Verstappen at certain races because he just blasts past. He doesn't care. But then he has to fight Tsunoda, and all of a sudden he can't even make a move.
Yeah,
which is weird.
I think he's.
Yeah, I mean that's why I argue that it is track specific. I wasn't even surprised by the qualifying positions of the McLarens. I wasn't surprised when Norris hit the wall. I wasn't surprised when Piastri hit the wall in qualifying. You know, there were a lot of issues across the grid. And I think maybe rather than questioning, you know, drivers and, you know I have maybe questioned Piastri's performance here, but rather than question the drivers specifically, because we saw so many incidents from some of the best drivers on the grid, question the circuit. You know, it's obviously not working. I suppose we kind of have to see how the smaller cars operate next year. But I'd argue as of right now, it was never going to be ideal.
I think the circuit's not working because it's modern day F1 car. If you look back in previous years, the circuits worked so some of the best races of the season it's been in. And then this year they come and no one can overtake with the longest straight on the calendar. Because cars are making other cars and not be able to follow. I think that's where the problem lies in Azerbaijan, rather than anything, rather than the track. I think it's the cars, which it seems to be a rinse and repeat statement for every track this year.
Yeah, it's the cars, not the tracks. And I mean, it's been kind of the trend of the season where every track we go to, we're like, yeah, it's horrible racing. What happened? And then we come to the conclusion, it's the cars, we forgot.
Can't overtake or follow or anything.
Yeah, and I think the biggest difference you see is when both F3 and F2 are also present at the weekends, because you watch those races and they are absolutely chaos. Everyone's everywhere, overtaking left,
I think
right,
there was
upside down.
2-3 wide moments on
You
the
just see-
second lap in F2 at the weekend.
Yeah, and then you go to F1 and it's just
Yeah.
one big train of cars, and it doesn't matter which team is where because you can't overtake if you qualify well and you do the strategy well. McLaren, then you're pretty much set. And I'm not discounting Williams here because they've driven an amazing weekend, but you can't overtake, and the free air that he got, I think, is one of the major factors that aided him in securing that P3 finish.
But as well, you look at a lot of the races this season, and the amount of times I've looked at the timing screens and seen that there's no one car within DRS of another car. That says a lot when they're racing mid-race. No one's got DRS on anyone. And it does nothing anyway. I think one of the races was it gave 2 kilometres an hour extra pace because it's just mitigated so much of dirty air. So, speaking of improvements, there's one man who's come in with Red Bull in particular, Laurent Mekies, with Max now winning has it been the last 2 races? Yep, the last 2. And now he's closed up massively in the championship. What impact has that man had on Red Bull since Horner's left and he's come in?
Well, there have been a few interviews where they have outlined key changes they've made. Of course, Mekies is a former engineer. He really knows what he's talking about. He's managed V-Carb for years now. And you see how stable those cars are doing, how well they are doing, because Hajar and Lawson are also pulling out performances you'd never expect in a million years from a sister team. If you look at where AlphaTauri's been, where Toro Rosso's been, that car has really been improved in a good way. And you see that Mekies has some pretty important insights into applying that to the very difficult RB21. I think they've also said that they've stopped relying on the simulations before the weekend and just trusting Verstappen's input and the engineers. So if Verstappen says, well, I'm not quite feeling it at turn 2, then rather than saying, well, the simulations were fine, they're just looking at the car to see how they can improve it into turn 2. So they're I think skipping a step in setting up that car on the Fridays and the Saturdays, and that unlocks some performance in that car, I believe. Because even Tsunoda did pretty well in Baku.
Yeah. Is that his best result of the season now?
You can really see I think the best result of the season with Red Bull. I think he got a P5 somewhere in his racing.
Yes, but even you look at P6 for him, he's still miles off Max, but that's a different story.
I mean, I would say with, Mekies coming in, you're seeing a lot more of that, engineering background being sort of applied. Under Horner, there was just such poor delegation. That seems to be a lot of why it wasn't working. So having Mekies with that insight as an engineer, I think has been massive for them. And also, from what I understand, everything on that car was, went through Horner because obviously the backlog and the production and everything. So it is really just a matter of how they are applying and approaching their setup and their car versus, he's just come in and changed everything. No, he's actually just working with what they had and making it run smoother and work better. And, there seems to be also a lot more interest in both cars, I would argue. Which again, I think probably just comes from the lack of delegation from, leadership. Even Helmut Marko is happy. Even he is happy. He seems to be really impressed with what Mekies has done. And yeah, I mean, like Shirley was saying, the the performance of VCarb in comparison to where they were and where they are. Even Max has said they're getting a bit too quick for my liking. So I think
Verstappen to
it's
VCOB
amazing.
2027.
Finally, yeah, finally got a Red Bull Racing I can support. Quite happy.
But I think it's with the whole how Mekies runs the team. There was a tweet I saw, and it was Mekies talking to Sky F1, and it was him saying how Max pushed for so much to happen in the race. Max pushed for the setup in Monza. He pushed for the soft tyre in Q3 in Baku, and he pushed to start the race on hards. And the fact that as a team principal, Mekies is able to say, listen to his drivers and action what the drivers are asking, that says a lot about how he is able to run the team.
I think it's also a thing that Verstappen is getting more comfortable in the car. Because at the start of the season, he was constantly complaining about the car not doing what he wants. He's still getting pole positions, podiums, and whatever. But he wasn't comfortable in that car. You see him fighting the car at every single turn. And then you saw in Monza and in Baku, on Friday, he's happy. He's happy with the car. He's happy with the balance. He's not topping the sessions or anything, but he's happy with how that car reacts, how that car handles. And I also believe that input and that stability can help Yuki gain some extra pace. And they have some extra breathing room within a weekend to set those things right. And I don't think that you, as McLaren or any title contender, you'd want Max Verstappen to be comfortable. You don't want him to get into a rhythm where he just does a 2023 again, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of maybe what the problem was in like that closing stage of Horner's time at the team was that, he's been there for like 20 odd years. It's probably very easy to kind of get lost in the sauce and not delegate and not listen and just kind of want everything to be done as you want it done. So I think, like this era of change that they're having is probably going very nicely hand in hand with Max being able to have his input. And it could also be the factor that keeps him at that team until the end of his contract.
There were rumours of things being dicey with him and Horner towards the end of Horner's time. So,
I mean, there's always been those sort of allusions to sort of Team Verstappen, so Jos, Helmut Marko, them all being very on one side, and then Horner kind of being on the other side of that. So yeah, I think if Max is now being given that space to do what he knows and do what he wants, it's quite a big indicating factor about what was going wrong there before, especially considering Mekies is making a lot of noise about it.
And as Pigeon said, Mekies was an engineer, has come through that kind of stages of being engineer in a team. So when he listens to his drivers say, this is what I want for the setup, or this is what I want for this, he understands it from a racing point of view, and he will action it, rather than probably what Horner was doing, in that he was just listening to, this is what the simulation said, very basic knowledge of that kind of engineering side. And that's probably where things start to go a little bit wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just quickly say on that, like, this is what I mean about that application. I looking at some of the things that Marco said, and like, it just seems to completely transform the way that they are operating. And nothing. The package has very seldom changed. It's just the way that they are going about their weekend with what they've got. The package is pretty much what Horner was pushing for, what he'd approved, what he wanted. So this is huge for them.
Yeah, I mean, that pretty much hits the nail on the head right there. But I think the key difference that you have, and you have to consider, is that when you have a Sauber or a Haas with a terrible package, or a Red Bull with a terrible package, you have a 4-time world champion in your car who knows what he wants, who knows what he needs, and who can surely extract that pace from that terrible package, even when the car doesn't do what you want in Japan, in Imola, because he wasn't happy with the car at those events. But now he kind of gets into a place where he can get that car to be comfortable, to do exactly what he wants, and to push that car, even if it doesn't have as much pace as the McLaren, but to push it into a place where he can get that extra couple of tenths out of there that you didn't expect him to, but without the balance issues. And I think that also translates pretty well to what Tsunoda can do with that car. If he doesn't have to worry about putting it into a wall at every single turn, then he can also kind of just, I wouldn't say relax, but relax and
race his own
just do his
style,
race.
isn't it? But obviously, though, like we've discussed there with Mekies, Red Bull changing personnel, McLaren are changing structure from a team that was really two drivers on a kind of equal footing, but there's nothing really battling for more constructors than drivers. Maybe with Norris slightly more prioritised towards the end of last season. Into this season with two number one drivers and two drivers battling for a championship is never something easy to manage. And now we've got whatever papaya rules might be. I'd love to see an actual written document of this to understand it.
That's what I said a couple of weeks ago.
What papaya rules is so much more. But with that in play, and they mention it so much, and Norris has had a slow stop to let him by. Piastri's done this to let him by. I'm surprised Norris didn't get told to crash at Baku, but that's a different story as well. I want to know how they've let it slip, how they've actually taken the championship with two number one drivers who have been brilliant, who have raced very well and literally dominated and destroyed everyone else in their path, to now 7 rounds remaining, and all of a sudden you're looking at an outside chance of Max Verstappen taking the championship away from them because of, let's be real, their own complete screw-ups in a team that really should have run away with this and had no one challenging them.
Yeah, I think before you go looking into the trash for that papaya rules book, you have to consider the fact that we are heading from 2 low downforce spec races to one of the higher downforce races. I think you can, if Verstappen manages to win in Singapore or get a P2 even, if he can get a good result in Singapore, a place where he has struggled over the years, then you can really say, okay, champion fight is with Max in the mix. But if he gets a P4 in Singapore, it's over. It never really started because, he closed a 35-point gap, but it's a 35-point gap in a 104-point gap. The biggest margin ever overturned was 44, 46 points, I believe. This is almost triple that. So, before we get too excited about it, let's just go through Singapore. Singapore will be one of the most important indicators of what Red Bull have been doing, what they can do, and what they can get out of the car for the rest of the season. Because we're heading over to Kota, Mexico, Brazil. Those are all pretty high downforce tracks. And even Mexico with the long straights, it has some really technical parts of it where you don't really rely on your power, but more on downforce. So before we say anything about the championship, let's get past Singapore, because that'll be the deciding factor, I believe. And if both McLarens crash again, then we can definitively say it. But
keep that in the back pocket. It could happen.
Yeah. I mean, we have seen that McLaren are not perfect. The pit stops are all over the place. Piastri makes mistakes, something we haven't seen too much yet, not to offend Jasmine with her previous statements. But we have seen a serious crack in Piastri's armor of perfection over the weekends. And Norris has
He's had a
let
consistent
some
crack
chances
in
slip
his armour.
as well. Yeah. So before we get too excited, let's give it one more race, and then we can get into the final quarter of the season. Those final 6 races where we might see miracles happen, or we might see the very most boring title fight ever.
I'm just impressed, honestly.
So Jazz is just like, yeah, I don't care what happens in those final 7 races.
Joe, because of how we
I
do
just want
this
to see good
podcast,
action.
it's just whoever's talking on the screen.
Yeah.
No one would have seen Jazz's face the whole time we were talking there. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
I really wanted to enjoy this season. It was very clear from early on that we were going to get a McLaren title fight. McLaren have managed to make it infuriating and boring all at the same time. They have pushed me, someone who's been stuck in 2021 since it happened. They have annoyed me into rooting for Max Verstappen. Okay, I can only blame McLaren for this. So just go on and do it. Like, get your 5th. I don't care anymore. I want it over. I want 2026. I'm fed up. I'm miserable every weekend because it's just. But on a serious and professional note, yeah, I'm in complete agreement. We need to get Singapore out of the way and see what happens. Norris won in Singapore last year.
He almost binned it twice, but yeah, he won.
Yeah, because he had such a dominant lead that he was getting bored. That's what happened. Anyway,
whatever you need to tell yourself.
He's like, should I just go an inch to the left?
He just wanted to.
Almost got you there.
Trying to stay awake, guys. But no, like, we have to see what happens in Singapore before I think we can start really pushing the Max Verstappen agenda. But I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see how Oscar performs in Singapore off the back of a pretty big mistake at another street circuit. So it's all to play for, I don't think anyone should be getting too comfortable. Particularly Lando Norris, because he's in a Verstappen Piastri sandwich right now, and that is probably, if I was a racing driver, the last place I would want to find myself, with Max sneaking up and Oscar running away with it. That's a pretty horrible
I'd argue
place
a sandwich
to be.
where Stroll is involved is worse.
That's a whole other sandwich. But yeah, let's get Singapore out of the way, and then we can really start,
Another thing you
getting the
should
Max
be
merch out.
considering for Singapore is the weather. If it rains in Singapore, you'll have a completely different race.
We've got
on
2
your
weeks to
hands.
Singapore, so about this time next week we'll get the weather forecast. So it will rain every day, and we'll see no rain. That's normally how it goes.
If I look at the current things, they're predicting thunderstorms and rain for the entire weekend. But that's a 14-week
Have we not had that for the last?
You will
For
not
2
be
months.
Have we not had that for the last every race?
Yeah, we've had it for the past couple of races. But yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
we did see rain in Baku. We didn't really see any rain tires, but it has definitely mixed up the order.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I think McLaren in 2025 is the perfect demonstration of HR ruining everything. If you get too HR with it, then you just ruin a perfectly good thing. So yeah.
I mean, as you both said, spot on. See what Singapore brings. Rain predicted loosely. Could
Max Verstappen win incoming.
Could let that happen. It will definitely change up the order, or maybe it won't, and the McLarens will be 1 and 2 and run away with it. But
I might do a rain dance for Hamilton. Singapore and Hamilton
That's
do
true.
go hand in hand.
I mean,
Really?
yeah, because of the Ferrari now, so They might give him slicks in a
like
wet tire kind of situation.
Rain is an equalizer unless you drive for Ferrari.
Then it's just one more opportunity to screw up.
Every time we do these podcasts, I just sink further and further
you got
into
7 races,
into the
and
depression.
then
Honestly.
Norris still won't be world champion.
Yeah. I mean, for all the Verstappen haters, you can keep this in mind. Verstappen will now have to answer like 17,000 different questions about being back in the title fight. He'll be tormented with that next week on Thursday.
With the press. It's got to come out. But him being in title fight, I think, is very loose again, 69 points. It's given everyone something to talk about, and it's given us something to talk about for 35 minutes and 42 seconds. You can see it down there.
I need to go and lay in a dark room
this has
after
been
this.
one of the more debated podcasts with many different views.
I think, for the most part, we are all on the same page, though. Let's we can hope.
Yeah,
but let's get
wait and
some
see
out of the
kind
way.
of thing.
Yeah, I mean that's been this whole season. This whole season has just been wait and see because McLaren are just. I don't know what they do over there. I don't know if they, play rock, paper, scissors. I don't know what they do. But, Red Bull, I would be very interested in just seeing them shake this whole thing up now at the end of the season. Whether that be just getting in the way a little bit, not necessarily going for the title, but just really throwing a spanner in the works there for McLaren. That would do me nicely, to be honest. Anything to make this just more difficult for myself would just be really ideal.
7 races to make it more difficult for yourself.
Yeah.
I think if Verstappen can somehow jump Norris, even just Norris, McLaren really should be considering
legal action against
doing something
themselves.
different because that would be. Yeah, because that would
I
just
would
be
take legal action for
mental distress.
Psychological warfare against me. If Max can either let me lay out the parameters of my Verstappen support here, right? He can either get both of them or he can't get either of them. I am not going through the off season.
Norris finished 3rd in a 2-horse race.
As a Norris fan. I'm not doing that.
Andrea, Stella,
They always
Zekra,
do.
I know you're listening right now. You heard it here first. If it happens for some reason, we will send Jazz after.
It's just Jazzle and McLaren
with legal
Technology
action.
Centre
If
holding
they
the sign
mess up
going,
me-
why have you done this? Yeah.
I can't believe you've done this.
If McLaren messes up for me, the payout will be hefty. That's all I'm saying. I
think that's a good place to draw the line there. Let us know what you think in the comments of everything we've discussed today. And mainly let us know in the comments, do you think that Verstappen can win the title? 7 races to go. Is it a possibility? He can do it mathematically. It's whether or not he will. Down below is all our socials, our Twitter, our Instagram, our newly launched TikTok, which is getting loads of content put onto it, and of course our website. Make sure you head over, click on the links, and Twitch. We're live now for race reviews and hopefully some gaming streams in the near future. So head over to all of them. Make sure you give everything a follow and support us on all of our socials and the website because there is lots of content coming from us and we're definitely trying to build on things. Let us know what you think about everything and we can do what you want and tailor your experience on our socials to you. But from me, Pigeon and Jazz, we all say goodbye. Any last words? We will surely see you in the next one.
Next time.
Take it easy.